and welcome to Buildings of Tomorrow. My name is John Lester, and in today's episode, we're talking about the role in financing and smart financing to really increase the speed of how we address decarbonisation and sustainability in our community and in our culture. Today, I'm joined by two very special guests, Bhaskar Rao, who is the CFO of Bangalore International Airport, and Pedro Azevedo, who is an investment director at Siemens Financial Services. Gents, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, John.
I'm excited about this conversation because we're talking about speed. We're talking about why it's so important for us to take big strides in addressing decarbonisation, in addressing the climate challenge that we have as a globe, as a society, and how financing can really facilitate and help drive that speed. Pedro, I'm going to pass to you first. Why is speed so important? What's the situation that we're battling with?
Perhaps we should start with the problem, which is all the carbon and greenhouse gas emissions we emit to the atmosphere. We are talking about 50 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which is emitted into the atmosphere each year. More than 2/3 of this is carbon dioxide, with the remainder being other greenhouse gases, such as methane and others. To put this into perspective, in the 1950s, the world would emit around 5 billion tons of CO2 equivalent, just 1/10 of what is currently emitted each year. The Paris Agreement, which is often considered a major milestone, commits various nations to carbon-reducing targets and timeframes. According to some advocates, the measures in the Paris Agreement may result in a reduction of 3 to 6 billion tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. This is just a drop in the ocean. Now, if you consider this in the context of carbon neutrality, which is what people, governments, companies are talking more and more, then we realize that to move from the 50 billion tons in 2020 to achieve the carbon neutrality that is needed, speed is of essence.
No, I understand. And that speed, as you say, is important for us because we need to turn the tide, right? We need to start heading in the down direction and stop going in the up direction. Bhaskar, a quick question for you. As a major corporation, as a company that have a complex but very important role also within your local community and your local society, how did this topic come to you, come to the level of importance, and how did you go through the process of identifying and making these clear decisions from your perspective?
So Bangalore Airport is the airport for the city of Bangalore, and Bangalore is the fastest growing city in the country, much more than any average city in South Asia. Bangalore Airport has also been growing at a phenomenal pace before the COVID pandemic set in, and we were growing at a CAGR of between 14 to 18%, and that was both freight and air traffic. So our case was that we wanted to make sure that we turn the airport to as much of carbon neutrality as possible, and that meant that we had to look at two important parameters, and one of them was to get into 100% renewable energy, and other was get a water neutrality such that we do not add any further carbon footprints. And for an airport, it was vital, and it was also a very clear goal that we set ourselves for up to 2020, and we actually got over there. So December 2020, we could manage 100% renewable, power from renewable sources, and that was a long journey, but we did it. And it was very important also that Bangalore Airport is in an area of Bangalore which is a sort of rain shadow area. So it always used to have water availability at about 1,000 feet below ground. And we said that, we need to get the groundwater level much higher. And we did not want to waste even a drop of rain that falls within our 4,000 acres of land. And we got into a, rain harvesting through ponds, through various drip holes, etc. And we were able to bring the water up to a level of about 50 feet within the airport and the surrounding area. So it was both a challenge as well as a very rewarding sort of a thing. So this has been at the center of our overall theme of development within the airport.
Yeah, perfect. And thank you so much for that overview, because what I think is really important also is that when we talk about sustainability, it's not always just energy efficiency. It's not always just, decarbonization. Sustainability is a bigger topic often when we do talk about, potable water supplies and some of these other aspects. So we're going to come back very shortly to your journey, Bhaskar, because I'm really interested to hear the challenges that you had to overcome and the complexities that you had to manage together with your partners for this journey that you went through. Before we get there, Pedro, Bhaskar just gave us that insight about Bangalore. Bangalore is an area that's growing very, very quickly, and we know that when we have urbanizations that are growing quickly, that does put pressure on energy supply. That does put pressure when you have sustainability goals. That comes with challenges. Is that something that we see more broadly across the Asia region in general, from your perspective?
Definitely, John. You mentioned urbanization.
Mm-hmm.
That is a factor. Most of more than half of the world's megacities are in the Asian region.
Mm-hmm.
There is a big trend there. Then you also have economic development. Unfortunately, economic development is linked to carbon emissions, and unfortunately, the living conditions of millions of people are improving, and with that, you have more emissions. You also have entire supply chains that moved from rich countries in North America or Europe that moved to Asia. So all this manufacturing, all this supply chain is in Asia, and so you have a lot of the production, so to say,
Mm-hmm.
happening there, but equally you also have the Asian region as perhaps one of the most affected parts of the world when with global emissions.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in a number of countries. Bangladesh is one of them, but many other. So because of these two aspects, I think there is this real sense of urgency, which
Mm-hmm.
It's warranted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on those really interesting topics there. We have a huge amount of growth, economic wise, which is linked to increased emissions. There is therefore the huge opportunity to start to make great strides forward to find some of these goals, some of these benefits. But these things aren't always easy, and as we talked about at the start, the speed is such an important part. How today we're talking a little bit from a financing perspective. Bhaskar, you have a financing responsibility and leadership at your organization, and Pedro, you're in this financial services industry. I'll bring this question to both of you, but Bhaskar, let's start with you. How important is financing when you start to talk about these kind of these actions? When we start to implement some of the solutions that you have done, how important is that financing and the support or the understanding of the models that enable you to do this, invest, and do it quickly?
So I think sustainability has become a key theme in most financing decisions, be it from commercial banks, be it from DFIs, or be it to be sustainability linked bonds, which become so very popular. These have all helped, and most of the financing are also driven to make sure that development comes with sustainability, and that's become a sort of a key sort of a focus. We have also, our sustainability goals have not been driven particularly by a financing need, but we are driving our financing needs to make sure our sustainability goals are met, and including our, we are going through a very large expansion, and this expansion started pre-COVID, of facilities, putting a new runway, building a new terminal, etc. But the core theme of this terminal is again, driven by sustainability, and this was something which even the lenders, they liked once they had seen this, in a sense that the new terminal is going to be, taken after the city of Bangalore was called Garden City. So we wanted to capture a little bit of this garden within the terminal, new terminal, and so we are building a forest belt, and we're building a lot of garden within the terminal. And plus, one of the key pillars in our new terminal is also sustainability, which means we should be looking at natural lights. We should be looking at sustainable buildings and stuff like that. So for financing today, and I think this is going to be more in the future, and Pedro can add on to this, that sustainability would be a requirement for good financing, efficient financing.
Understand. And Pedro, that was exactly the question. So thank you, Bhaskar. You're driving this nicely for us. This linking of financing to sustainability, is this something that we're seeing more and more often? Is this an important development? And how is it affecting the ability for us to more quickly invest in these sustainability actions into these approaches?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Bhaskar gave the perfect example. Something that was targeted, not driven by regulation, not driven by any specific law, but the understanding that the customers, that society is looking for something, and proactively entering into that space. And this is what we see. We see this sustainability targets, and how financing can contribute to that. A number of these measures do require investment. In many cases, we say that the green premium, which is the cost to move to green alternatives, is actually cheaper than the old alternatives. So it's a negative green premium. But in other cases, it requires some investment. So financing is an enabler. To allow companies and all the agents in society to adapt to that new reality that is needed. We have at Siemens, but you see that in industry as well, solutions, or we're working on a number of solutions to support our partners to move into that direction, and financing is one of the tools to achieve that.
Okay, beautiful. I think that moves really nicely to this next step in the conversation, where I'd like to talk a little bit about your journey, Bhaskar, and after you identified as an organization, you wanted to become carbon neutral. You wanted to change the water supply situation. You made that decision, and you've reached the end of the journey, let's call it, or at least you now have implemented this. How was that? That has to be a daunting proposition once you make this decision. How was that for you as an organization, and how did you work, together with Pedro as an example, and some of the partners to make that happen? I'm interested to hear a little bit of that experience that you went through.
So we had sort of 3 or 4 key areas. One was to make sure that we can get into renewable and sustainable energy. getting into a water neutrality, which ultimately we are going to be we'll get into a water positivity on a net basis, a solid waste management, and to make sure that our buildings are clearly built on sustainable principles. So one of the key challenges again was on power, and power normally is in countries like India, even today, a large majority of power comes from thermal sources, fossil fuels, most of them coal, some of them is the oil-based stuff. For us to move away from that, we sort of started with the distributed energy study to understand what are the things that we can do, what are those sources that we can take which can meet our requirement. Airports are 24/7 and we need to have power 24/7. So the various options that we could evaluate at that time was wind, solar again, rooftop. Every rooftop we wanted to have solar panels, ground mounted, wherever we can, even in the air side, biofuel, hydro, battery energy storage system, and fuel cell, which is a clean energy sort of a thing. We started with what was low hanging for us. One was to add wind energy through open access, build solar generation on site, where we actually went through with some of the partners that we talked about, Bexis and someone else, and we were able to achieve that quickly. Thereafter, we have also looked at open source for solar energy, because India again has got a lot of potential for solar energy and wind energy, and we took the next step of solar energy, which was off-site and based upon open access we'll get. Now we are evaluating fuel cells. Now we are evaluating battery energy storage system on a pilot basis, because they are still not totally proven. They're still expensive and stuff like that. But our current 100% reliability on sustainable energy has come from three sources. One is the rooftop, one is the solar, and one is the wind.
Okay, perfect. What I really like about that story as well is that even though you've reached this goal that you set yourselves, that's not the end of the journey, right? There's still new technologies, there's still possibilities to continue to improve. Like you mentioned, not just becoming water neutral, but water positive. Which means you're then supporting the society and the communities around you. That kind of thing, I think, is also a really important message for us to recognize that there's also the ability for us to continue to invest, to continue to find additional benefits and continuously improve as new technology, as new strategies become available. So thank you for that, because that's a really important point as well that I'd like to highlight. And I think that's important because if we look back 10 years, what we're able to do today, we couldn't have done 10 years ago. We fast forward 10 years, there'll be stuff that we can't imagine today that will certainly be at our disposal. Pedro, a quick question for you. What Bhaskar just described for us, what they've achieved and the journey they went through at the Bangalore International Airport. I can imagine that this is an example or demonstrates the challenge, but also some of the achievements that there are many organizations attacking and approaching at the moment within the region. Can you give us a little bit of insight into what is happening in the region, some of the partnerships that you're working on and working with, and how that's really bringing benefit to drive this speed, to drive this activity within the Asia region?
Yeah. So one of the common themes that Bhaskar alluded to is decentralization. So decentralization together with what we spoke earlier, decarbonization, and adding digitalization, so the 3Ds. These are three key drivers for a great number of companies in the region. So with our partner, BCIS, we are able to provide commercial and industrial customers with energy as a service agreements, whereby BCIS designs, installs, and operates on-site distributed energy solutions. Such solutions can be on on the generation side, for instance, with solar PV, or on the demand side via energy efficiency solutions, or it can be both. All the CapEx, the investment in the equipment or software, is also fully financed by BCIS. So from a customer's perspective, there is no upfront investment involved. And in addition to this, the customer would benefit from annual savings. So it's a win-win game for our customers as well as our partner BCIS. The net results are savings, which are then split between both parties. And it has been extremely successful, and the reasons to that success relate to what we were discussing now. All these trends that we observe in the region, and the real need and real commitment to sustainability targets. Mm-hmm. So it's real. It's not something that we just hear in the news in nice conferences. This is happening.
Yeah, and that's what it's great to hear. You know,
yeah,
sorry, Bhaskar, you go.
Add to what Pedro has said, and it's a very powerful statement. You know, it's just not nice to do. It's actually good cost efficiency. You know, renewable power today is much more cheaper, and various governments are actually, you know, also enabling, you know, removal of cross subsidy, you know, storage of solar energy for use in the night time, etc. There's a lot of encouragement also which comes in, and thereby, you know, we have actually reduced our power costs substantially by being renewable. I mean, it's nice to talk and it's good on the balance sheet.
Yeah, and it's these win-wins. Like, that's an amazing thing for you, Bhaskar, you know, as a responsible from a finance perspective, as also a driver of the sustainability approach in a corporation. That, you know, that you can't get better than that, right? The numbers are green, the energy is green. This is a benefit that we need to see, and I think that's, you know, what I like about that. That's really an indication of why the time is now. You know, the cost profile, the ability, that financing partnerships like you discuss, Pedro, around you know, things like energy as a service and those different business models, combined with the technical capabilities that we have now, the technology, the digitalization that enables us to not only install these systems but also integrate them into our existing systems and deliver that security, that resilience, which for in your example, Bhaskar, 24/7, 365 days a year, you know, there's no options for this. So it's hitting the business requirements, hitting the business targets from a financial perspective, and also hitting those sustainability targets. Thank you both so much for the discussion today. I've got one more question, and actually two more questions I like. Firstly, Pedro, quickly, you mentioned BECIS. Could you give us an example? What does that mean? Because it sounds like an acronym, and they scare me. What does BECIS stand for?
It stands for Berkeley Energy, Commercial and Industrial Solutions. It is based in Singapore, but with operations in India, Thailand, Indonesia, China, and a number of other countries in Asia.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Then my last question is for you, Bhaskar. Already you've given us a bit of insight into the success that you've seen, but maybe a final personal comment from you. You know, you and your organization made this commitment. You put in the hard work, working together with your partners. You've achieved the goals that you've looked to meet, and as you mentioned and highlighted before very eloquently, you know, it's good on the balance sheet. It's good from an environmental perspective, and it is a personal question. So, but how does that feel? You know, for you, you know, what kind of pride and what kind of you know, responsibility does that bring to you, knowing that you're hitting these goals and you're hitting these targets? Yeah,
you put it rightly. It's both a source of joy and a great responsibility to make sure, you know, we carry it on. So it's a lot of hard work done by a lot of our team members, who have sort of always been trying to find newer methodology to make sure, you know, we convert ourselves into a green output. And that's a sort of a very basic, you know, goal for the organization, as I told you, our new terminal, one of the key pillars of the 4 pillars that we have identified, one of the key pillars is sustainability, and this is going here, and it's going to stay for us for forever, and it's only going to be improvements, and it's also proven that it's good, as you rightly said, it's green both ways. So there is a good focus, and it's going to continue.
Yeah, perfect. And I think, it's great to have the conversation, and thank you for joining us, because like we talked about at the very start, it's all about speed, and we can't rely completely on governments to drive this. We do rely on corporations such as yours to take the commitment and then deliver on those commitments, working together with your partners like BCIS, like Siemens Financial Services. So it's that kind of action that I think we need as a society in general as well, to really hit this speed, to hit these goals, and to make the progress that we know we need to make, to go from there. Bhaskar, Pedro, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, John.
Thank you to everyone else who's out there for listening to us. Please make sure you share, like, or comment on this episode. Subscribe to us if you're listening to us or watching us. Pick your favorite channel. Check out every week for new episodes. And I hope that this is not the last discussion. We may have more conversations with Bhaskar, with Pedro, about the journey that they've gone through. But thank you very much to them and to you. And we'll see you again soon.